Well, good morning and nice to see everyone today. I'm Rachel with Smart Impressions, and we have a great show just for you. If you have gone to an event, organized event, or even just walked around an event and seen staff that clearly doesn't work for those businesses, and this has been a pain point for you, then you are going to love our show today. I have an expert in the field from CEO Agency. They've been here for over a decade. Samuel Guest is in the house. Mark, who's that Director of Marketing and Events. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Rachel. Thank you for having me. How are you?
So far, so good. This town is buzzing with events. It's like event. You guys must be super busy, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think anyone you speak to that touches events or marketing, this is what we call the season. We're very amongst it right now. Everyone's sort of woken up post-summer, wants everything done by the end of the year. So yes, we have lots going on daily at the minute, which is great, but it keeps us busy. But yes, you can certainly feel the buzz in Dubai and beyond at the minute for sure.
No doubt. Well, cool. Well, I don't want to keep you too long. So this is a quick show for all of our listeners in. I do encourage you jump into the conversation with Samuel. We're going to talk about a lot of these pain points for people that run events, organize events, and even outsource people to help the production of the events. And when it comes to staffing, our topic today is all about the scenes behind the scenes of event success. And it's really, there's a lot of parts to this untold power of event staffing. You guys, this is one segment that Samuel, you guys are really excelling in. And so, anyone in the event space is going to know how stressful it is. And when the event is understaffed, could be a little bit of a pressure on everyone, wouldn't you say?
100%. And I think coming into this business, CEO's been here a long, long time, and staffing is their bread and butter, very well known in the region. I've come in more from an events and marketing perspective, but knowing sort of front hat or first hand and being on that front line yourself when you're hosting an event on behalf of a client, the staff make all the difference. And I think these days, with budget cuts and everyone trying to scrimp and save where they can, 9 times out of 10, the staffing side of it and the people side of it is a line that gets scrutinized and taken away. And it feels it's such a negative attitude towards it, because the people at these events make the event. I think we in the industry, we notice a lot in terms of production quality. There's the stands look good. There's the experience feel great. Oh, that's cool. This isn't cheesy. But the reality is, for your everyday punter that comes to an event, 9 out of 10 of them don't even notice half of what we notice, and it's the people they interact with. So if we have a brand ambassador at an experience that is smiley, understands why they're there, welcoming that person into the event, it makes all the difference. And I think for us, if you don't have enough staff and you have, more importantly, the wrong staff, it can make or break the event. And I think we're seeing that more and more. Brands are wanting to be more hands-on. It is experience first. We can't just get away with a touch screen and a big LED screen wall behind it and hope for the best and hope that we've got some cool content. I think post-COVID, the world wants to become a little bit more hands-on, and people are a little bit more picky and choosy about what they attend to. So that live experience is more important than ever. And I think you're right. The right people at the right time can really make it.
Well, I'd like to touch on that a little bit more, because here at Smart Impressions, it's all about unlocking business relationships, and these relationships are built at these events, whether it be a trade show, an industry event, a networking night, a dinner party, whatever it is. Like, if you're going out with other people and you are hiring people to represent your brand, that's going to be a huge risk on how people perceive your brand and want to do business with you. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And I think it's naive to think otherwise. I think that if you are in marketing and you're a brand, you're a client, and you are engaging, particularly with members of the public, I think sometimes it's a little bit different if it's a closed audience. So when it's a little bit more B2B style of event, the audience know why they're there. They know who they're speaking to. They sort of, the expectations are probably slightly less because it's familiar. But I think if it's an event in a public forum, recently GITEX was a big part of Dubai. So there was a number of audience members coming through the doors at GITEX from I've got people that I know that are recruiters, for example, that go to the show, as well as people within our industry. And I think for me, the brands, when that first touch point is really the consumer, similar effect. If the staff aren't good and they're understaffed, it's inconsistent, it creates stress when they need to be stressed, the guests get frustrated, and then they leave with a really bad impression of the brand. And you've maybe only had a 10, 15-second interaction with the brand itself. And now all of a sudden that person, I don't like this brand X or Y. And what can you do about it as a client or as a business? You probably miss 80% of what actually happens at these shows and at these events because you're not necessarily there, or you might be there, but you're in a meeting room or you're back at the house. And I think it's the importance on the actual staff members themselves. They are the ones interacting. They are the ones that are almost so valued, you don't know how good they are until they're not there. And I think it's the case of when you have a bad staff member or a bad ambassador, it really sets the tone of that event, and whether it works or not. And that's why we build relationships with the staff that we put forward. They're always in the office. We have chats with them, we have training with them, we brief them. And they, before they even put on the uniform on the day, they know what's expected from us, but also from the brand itself. And it really does make a difference. And I think it's something that mentioned earlier can be overlooked. And yeah, so we try to avoid that and make the clients and the brands' lives a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you mentioned HR recruiters because I think it kind of, there's a crossover in like the staffing aspect for employees of companies in general. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I see at events that don't represent brands in the best way, right? It's almost better to hire staff to do it instead, right? So yeah. I encourage any companies out there that are sending your team out during the day to lose 5 days at a trade show, maybe staffing is the way to go, especially if you can get someone that, you know, meets your brand standards and able to represent your brand in the best way to take conversation forward and to network. But what do you think are some other of the big risks that brands should be really aware of when they choose staff or work with staff?
For us personally, and for me personally, like I say, having seen that when we've worked in non-staff and agency environments, you need to choose the right people for the right project. And I think it's the same in all forms of life and all job roles. But if you're a brand that specializes in hair care, you're probably not going to choose someone like me to come along on that stand and talk about hair care. So what we try and do when we get a brief in from a client and a potential client, we try and match the personalities with the people that we trust and we know that are going to represent that brand as best as they can. A prime example would be the golf that's just happened in Abu Dhabi over the last weekend. We had a strong team down there with high presence, and 2 or 3 of the actual sort of staff and ambassadors that we had on the actual show itself were ex-golfers. And I think instantly, if you've got an ex-pro golfer going down to an event that they're interested in, that they can relate to, that they understand, that guest experience, not only does it create a point of interest for clients and customers and potential customers coming into that space. Normally, our staff would be in a hospitality area or a suite, etc., something like that. So it is that sort of high-end service. They can not only hold a conversation with whoever's in there, but lots of them people absolutely love golf, and chances aren't particularly great. I can vouch for that. But you've got access to someone that does get it and does know it, and instantly that person's going to be remembered for the brand, that they're sort of the environment, I guess, that we've put forward for you to interact with those individuals. So it's like a job interview. Just because someone sort of ticks a lot of boxes doesn't necessarily mean they're the right fit for that particular project, but they may be great for someone else. If it's an automotive event, it's kind of, there's so many variables. And I think part of our job and the team's job is to understand that and only put forward the right people that go with the right project. And I think staffing in general, and I hate to use the term, but sometimes there's people that can catfish and they talk a good game and they very much, this is what I used to do, I've got all this experience. But as soon as you see them in person and they're on the event and they're playing on their phone, it just gives such a negative impression. And I think for me, the key output is that if you don't notice something at an event, chances are that's because it's seamless. Like a registration, for example, you go in, you get your badge, you're in the door, you're there. if I've not got any initial thoughts, comments, or queries on that, that's a good thing. I don't need to be screaming and shouting. That was the best registration desk I've ever seen, but it was slick. It was time efficient. I'm in, I'm there. That's the feedback that we're after. It's almost the unsung heroes of the event, I think, in terms of from a staffing perspective, for sure.
Well, there's no doubt that I'm sure, like from your team perspective and the client perspective, getting things and logistics to run seamlessly is one of the biggest stresses during these event times, and really to support not only the engagement of the attendees, but all the other operational stuff that's outside and behind the scenes, as you mentioned. But what other type of support do you guys find that customers and clients are requiring, during these events that you're able to support?
We've just said, from operations, logistics, we work with a full manner of clients, and the kind of the sizes and scale of each job varies massively. But wherever it is, it could be something as straightforward as car park and signage. Like, we all struggle with when you go to events and there's no brand and there's no signage. Where am I going? Where do I park? I think it's the boring bits that you have to think about, and it's the bits that the clients don't necessarily have the time to think about. They'll come to us and say, look, we want to use you full guest logistics from, like I say, registration desk through to 5-star luxury hostess style treatment in the suites and the sort of for the VIP areas. But it's everything in between that. I think for us, that's the exciting part. They're the bits where, the important people are in the room and we need to look after them, and they're the decision makers. They're who we need to speak to. But if that person's already super annoyed because they didn't know where they were going, they didn't have a car park space, their valet parking is not clear, it's every touch point of that guest journey and that particular guest journey that we need to have thought about, spoken about, and trained the staff on. And I think where we are particularly hands-on, a member of our team will be at every event that we deliver. So we'll always have a senior CEO person on site, and it's almost that two-layer process of we have our expectations, and then you go even further with the brand's expectations. And from a client perspective, like I say, particularly in this market, I've worked internationally, and I think you find here that clients and brands have a lot less time, it seems, than anywhere else, and they're juggling multiple projects. They need to do GITEX this week, another event next week, and it's very much well, how can we make your life easier? Tell us what you need, what you want, and we kind of take care of the rest. So for sure, we do the basics well, I would say, is what would be quite a nice look at it.
Yeah, and I think, this is what makes you guys great, what you're doing, because you go beyond, but you've been doing it for so long. We are limited on our time, and I want to leave our team and our community with the most valuable tips actionable tips that they can take away from this session with you. And it's been so informative and just kind of highlighting some of these risks for businesses if they don't take it seriously. But what are the tips that you have? Just 3 of them for any audience that is listening, that's interested in their next event, to basically outsource staffing. What are the right things that they need to look for and the support that they need in order to do it effectively and successfully?
Number 1 for sure is planning. I think don't leave it to the last minute. I think for us, the events and the clients that we have the best success and the best opportunities with are the ones that are thinking about it months in advance, not hours in advance. And I think for me, as I touched on earlier, if something feels effortless and no one notices it, that's the perfect delivery. And that's what we need. We don't need to be getting told off or telling staff, you must do this, you must do that. You don't know they're there, it's perfect. So number 1, for sure, planning. I think number 2, and I think where we sort of add a bit of extra value, is around the brand storytelling and narrative. So now that we are sort of functioning as a full service creative agency as well, it's understanding the client's why. Why are we at this event? What message are we trying to tell to our consumers and our guests? And does that come across? Yes, that can come across in production build and engagements and activations, but that's all great. But if the staff on the front line don't get it, then the whole thing's wasted. So I think for us, it's making sure that all staff members are aligned to that story. They can comfortably converse around that narrative and the story, As I said earlier, guests probably don't know whether that person's on a temporary contract or an actual employee of the brand. So it's important that when they communicate, they get the feeling that they are representing the brand. So alignment to the brand narrative. And then I think the final one, which fits in quite nicely, is feedback. I think it's something that's quite often overlooked. We always strive to have a feedback session at the end of every project with every sort of key person that's been involved, but particularly with the staff. As I keep using this term of the front line, like in the battle zone, but sometimes it feels like it. But for sure, I think what we notice and see firsthand is that the brand ambassadors that are spending 8 to 12 hours a day at that event and interacting with everyone, they see and hear things that clients for sure and brands do not have access to firsthand. So when we digest that information, we take that information, that feedback session essentially can form our next kickoff brief for next year and do this differently. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? As opposed to a client or a brand maybe hearing what they want to hear or just reading what they've seen online. These guys see it firsthand, and by taking half an hour to just sit down and run through it, 1,000,000% we shouldn't skip the debriefs. Sometimes they're as important, if not more, than the actual kickoff session. So when you get those 3 items happening all together, that for me is where we get into that effortless event execution, and that's what we want. Everyone wants their lives easier, particularly brands and clients, and that's hopefully where we can come in and make that happen. So yeah, if I had to do 3, those are it. Apologies. I waffled on a bit, but hopefully that's clear and makes sense.
They're good. I'm just going to shout out one more time. So it's the planning, it's the alignment, and it's the feedback. Those 3 tips are basically what everyone listening should be implementing, thinking about, and prioritizing to ensure that any outsourcing of any staff is aligned with your brand to make the most powerful impact for event success, and especially, like you said, the front line. It is a battle out there. You're against every one of your competitors, and any person can make or break that opportunity to build that relationship of a positive customer experience. So Samuel, thank you. Good conversation. Love it. I don't want to keep you from, I know you are back to back with events from here to Saudi. You guys work in the whole region, right?
Yeah, Saudi, across the UAE, and we've been quite busy internationally as well, from the excitement of Miami through to Birmingham in the UK, so, and kind of everywhere in between. So yeah, we're operating everywhere currently, so it's good. It's keeping everyone busy.
Right. Well, you got that global expansion going, and you got the global knowledge that brings some of these highlights. It doesn't matter where you are in the world doing these events. The keys are still the same. And I'm so grateful that you're here with us today. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Until next time, we're going to basically keep it going, keep these events flowing, get out there, go connect with humans. That's the most important thing. That's what I love to tell people to do. This show is sponsored by the Biz Angels, your outsourced business development, basically arm. So if you need some customers to go and find your business, that's where you're going to go. But in the meantime, for all your other staffing needs, security, reach out to CEO. They're killing it. They know their game. And Samuel, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Perfect. Thanks, Rachel. Have a good day.
You too. Have a good one.